So, what's the one thing that connects the invention of the wheel all the way to the International Space Station? Well, it's the secret ingredient to all modern innovation. We're going to dive into how the game has totally changed and what it really takes for a company to not just survive, but actually thrive today.
All right, let's start with a little question. What do you think was one of the first great human innovations? Now, you might think of fire, or maybe the first tools, but you could argue those were more like discoveries, right? The first true invention? Well, that required a whole new way of thinking.
You guessed it, it's the wheel. And this is a huge deal, because you just don't find wheels lying around in nature. Someone had to imagine it, create the knowledge out of thin air, and then figure out how to apply it. This was really the birth of true conceptual innovation.
Okay, now let's jump forward about 6,000 years. From that simple but absolutely brilliant wooden circle, we've taken a bit of a leap. So what does the pinnacle of human innovation look like now?
It looks like this. The International Space Station. I mean, what a marvel of engineering, right? It was built and it's operated by thousands of people from all these different countries and organizations. We've gone from something one person could dream up and create to something that needs massive global collaboration.
And that massive leap brings us right to the heart of the problem for businesses today, the modern innovation challenge. The rules of the game have been completely rewritten, and honestly, playing by the old ones is just a recipe for disaster.
Here's a perfect example of this shift. Not that long ago, in India, there was one car model, the Ambassador, and it was sold for 20 years straight. That was it. That was the market. And today, there are over 300 different models, all competing for your attention. The demand for something new is just relentless.
And this constant demand for new creates this, frankly, terrifying pressure. Just think about this. In some tech sectors, a product loses about 5% of its value every single month. That means today's cutting-edge gadget is basically a museum piece in less than 2 years. Innovating isn't just a goal anymore, it's a constant fight for survival.
So here's the crucial takeaway. The days of some R&D team being locked away in a lab, inventing the future all by themselves, those days are over. To survive today, innovation has to be happening all the time. It has to be collaborative, and it has to pull in knowledge from every single corner of an organization and its customers. And this is where a concept called knowledge management comes into play. It sounds a little corporate, but really, it's just the formal, systematic way that modern companies can harness their collective brain power. It's about creating, sharing, and actually applying knowledge. You could say it's the engine that powers modern innovation.
So how do the best companies actually pull this off? It's not magic, not at all. Research shows it really boils down to a pretty clear framework built on 3 pillars: getting the company culture right, building smart processes, and then providing the right infrastructure. Let's start with the foundation, which is really the most important pillar of all: culture. Because look, if you don't get the human element right, the best processes and the fanciest tools in the world just aren't going to matter.
You know, this totally flips the script on where we think great ideas come from. We picture these formal brainstorming sessions, right? But studies show that up to 99% of real innovation happens informally, over coffee in the hallway, and it's fueled by simple appreciation, not by big cash rewards, which, it turns out, often just encourages people to submit a bunch of low-quality garbage ideas.
Just think about the difference that makes. You have a manager who sees 2 people chatting and tells them to get back to work. That manager is actively killing potential innovation. But a manager in a great culture, they understand that that little informal chat might be the exact moment the next breakthrough is being born.
Okay, so once you have a culture that actually encourages sharing, you then need to build processes that can capture and learn from all that knowledge.
Now, this is a really critical mindset shift. A good process isn't some bureaucratic form you have to fill out. It's a way of telling a story. It doesn't matter if a project was a huge success or a spectacular failure. The process should capture why it happened. That way, the whole organization learns, it adapts, and it stops repeating the same expensive mistakes. It's like building wisdom right into the system.
And finally, let's look at that third pillar: infrastructure. Now, when I say infrastructure, I'm not just talking about computers and software. It's more than that.
This quote actually comes from a really hard lesson learned by a global oil company. They built this powerful computer program to tell them where to drill for oil. For 5 years, they blindly followed its advice and found nothing. They completely forgot that technology is a tool. It's not the decision maker.
So if a supercomputer isn't the ultimate innovation tool, what is? Well, this might surprise you. It's the humble water cooler. Seriously, research shows that about 80% of an organization's most valuable knowledge is shared in informal physical spaces just like these. So designing offices that actually encourage these spontaneous chats is a super critical part of innovation infrastructure.
So we've seen our tools transform from rocks and wood to algorithms in the cloud. We've seen processes evolve. But as we look to the future of innovation, there's one fundamental element that has stayed exactly the same for all 6,000 years. And that brings us to the final and most crucial takeaway. No matter how much our tools change, innovation will always be a deeply human thing. The way we connect with each other, share our thoughts, and build on each other's ideas, that's the one timeless secret. And that's why the most important thing we will ever manage is people.